Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shamans Cave.
And I'm Renee Baribeau, and I am thrilled to be here with you today once again for our weekly episode. And this time we're going to talk about honorable closure. What is honorable closure?
Well, I had a thought, if it's okay with everybody. Um, Basically, what happened is one of our viewers wrote in a topic that she would like for us to address. And it's a topic that I see all over Facebook again and again for years and years and years. And it's such an important topic. It's just that people really don't know how to deal with it. And so I wanted to just read what we wrote about this show because this will give you the big picture of what we're talking about. So many of us struggle with our feelings about Indigenous people losing their homes and practices in former times. The same, of course, is still happening today. The intense changes in the environment with species going extinct is alarming, and seeing death and struggles all around us. And so we're really being flooded with dealing with the abuses of the past, how much death we're seeing in the present right now. There's alarming going off where people really don't know, how do I deal with this? And so we can perform honorable closure ceremonies to honor humans and nature beings who died and to thank them for the gift of sharing their presence on the planet. This doesn't make any past or present abuses right, but it gives us a way to use spiritual practices to infuse honor and respect into all that happened and is still happening in the world today. So, as an example of this, the woman who wrote in the question was talking about all that happened to the Maori people in Australia. And as you know, we have abuses in all indigenous cultures around the world. It's terrible. Their lives were taken away, their language was taken away. Their spiritual practices were taken away, and this has been going on since the beginning of time. And we can't go back and fix it, but we can honor those who sacrificed their lives. And so, just as kind of an example of this, it's amazing. In the book of ceremony, I write about this. It's amazing how many letters I get from men who used to be loggers back in the old days. And, you know, they clear cut forests and now they're on a spiritual path and their heart is just crying out of what their behavior, you know, it was a job. There wasn't a consciousness of trees are alive. You know, I don't have to go on from that. We all know that consciousness is changing, and we're more understanding that everything in the web of life has a gift to share with the planet and is exquisite, and we want to be able to experience their beauty forever. And so my answer to those people who wrote me about logging has always been the same, is to perform a ceremony, either go back to where you were a logger or do it in non-ordinary time, it doesn't matter, and to actually stand in front of the area, whether in a journey or meditation or physically, and to really from your heart thank the trees for the beautiful presence and the gift and the grace that they brought to this planet. And then to raise your hands and wish all those trees, even though it was years ago, were outside of time, so time doesn't matter. We raise our hands and wish the trees a beautiful, beautiful journey home. I love plants, But my father had the most amazing green thumb, and I just don't have it. And I tend to over nurture. And so I do the same thing with my plants, and I tend to overwater. And a gardener pointed out to me once, that is not an act of love. I keep on saying I do it because I love my plants so much. And he says, that's not an act of love. So I actually have a plant graveyard on my land, where I bring every plant that died in my house out to this graveyard. And I take blue cornmeal and I sprinkle it over the plants, and I drum and I rattle, and I thank them for their beautiful presence and all that they shared with me. And I raise my arms and wish them a good journey home. This is something that you can do with a roadkill while you're driving on the road. You know, I wish you a good journey home. Thank you for what you gave on this earth. And it honors living beings. Honorable closure honors those that died. And when we do honorable closure, as I'm describing it, where you give thanks from your deepest place of your heart for all that you shared and sacrificed, and your amazing presence on this planet, and all that you added to our life, the gestalt of all of the web of life, what you added, that brings so much healing to be honored, because tribal people were massacred or imprisoned or everything taken away from them without any sense of honor. Animals are killed without honor. Trees and plants and all living beings are killed without honor. And that's the tragedy. That's the tragedy. The tragedy is what got lost, yes, what got lost, but that there was no honor at all in the process. And so that's why I love honorable closure so much, is I do believe, this is my own personal experience, is that when you honor those that died in an abusive way or in a sudden way, there is healing that happens, because you're saying thank you to them and giving them respect that they deserve for what they did share while they were alive.
Mm. And for me, that goes the same for giving honorable closure to people who have abused me. When I've mentioned before on shows that I, made this list and these amends, and I had to, I had a guide at the time who had me fly back to the East Coast. And one time it just so happens that I just was there on the fall, because I love the fall foliage, and I'm driving through all of Western Mass along the Mohawk Trail, and I ended up at my father's grave. And I wasn't really even aware that day that it was his birthday or the day of his death. I think it was the day of his death. And I had this letter to read to him. And I sat there, and with all of the hard times that I had processing through with him over all those years, I had this honorable closure where, I could really get real and say, not only have I forgiven you, it makes me really sad that you're not here to witness the woman that I've become, how much that I've healed this, and what I did with the hard mirror that was reflected back at me as a child, who I've become and how I've helped other people. And it was like this real sincere moment that shifted everything in my life. So, it's not only being honorable with the things we like, but it's also being honorable with the things that have really been difficult for us. One time I asked and I was in Peru, and Don Manuel Quispe was an Alto Masayo who was one of the Kuriakakuya, sorry if I say that wrong, but who was one of the last remaining really high level shamans. And I asked, why was I in such trouble, hot water with, the natives in the United States for, wanting to bring my sacred tools to Peru. And that was translated back to me was that he said, well, they forgot that they were, that they were the Incas, that that they were the war, that we forgot that at one time or another, if you go through history, that you were also the perpetrator and you were also, and so it takes a willingness to understand that you've been all of those things too, to offer honorable closure. So maybe, I don't know if you've ever been a tree, but you certainly are made up of atoms that are part of the same treescape.
Absolutely. I had this, I don't know if I ever shared this on a show, but I had this unbelievable dream one night. It was so graphic, it was unbelievable. And it was about a battle scene in medieval times. And it was all young men with blonde hair and blue eyes, and the blood and the limbs fly. I mean, it was a graphic, violent battle scene from medieval times. That's all I can say. And all of a sudden, the scene changed, and I'm sitting in an auditorium. And one of the main guys who was, in the battle, one of the main warriors, he came up onto the stage, and everybody in the audience started to ask him questions of what was it like to play that role in life? What was it like to play that role in life? It was such a profound dream of seeing this battle scene and then interviewing the main warrior on what it was to put on this costume in life and play that role. And, Shakespeare, of course, talks about that, but we're all playing roles. And, if you believe in reincarnation, we all come back different times. And as Renee said, we were the perpetrators, we were the murderers, we were the abusers, we were abused, we were sacrificed, we were the beautiful beings who life got taken away from us. We play every single role. We play every single role. And so it's really important for us to understand that it doesn't make abuse right. It's just that there is this play of life going on, and we get to experience these different roles. And my point, to kind of loop back to what we're talking about, is how do we bring honor back into the roles that we play? And what happens when we bring honor back into the roles, and what happens when we honor those who were abused and who got hurt and who got killed by either our present or past actions. And I believe healing happens when honor is brought into any kind of healing process.
You just reminded me of something that I hadn't thought about in years. In my Four Winds training, in one of the classes, one of the journeys that we were taken on is the life where we are most of service, the life where we were the abuser, and I can't remember what the third one was now, but to actually be at those death's doorsteps and, changing the way we held our own honor in those moments. And so how important it is to offer what we're talking about is some kind of closure, on those doorways, on those times, so that we can be fully present for what's going on now. And I had a past life regression once, and that night I dreamed about actually cutting off somebody else's hands at the wrist. I mean, and it was like this profound moment. And I learned afterwards that the person I was with that was there, they had that same past life regression. So that in that lifetime, I was the perpetrator. And, I had a dream about the experience. It was pretty trippy. But, because when we really start to move and flow with time, that, like you said, they've done studies where we can pray now for things that we've done hundreds of years ago, and it will affect the outcome there. And we can do the same thing for the future. In fact, I kind of told you that there's some work I'm playing with a fiction about, healing from the future too. So it's kind of this is a great topic.
Yeah, and it's an important topic because what's happening right now, we've always lived on a planet of division. As far as we know from recorded history, there might have been cultures. I know that there's a belief that there were, matriarchal cultures and there was peace. But from what we know from recorded history, we see the abuse that's gone on over and over and over again. And so what I'm seeing right now in the spiritual community is where people are getting stuck is that they can't move forward. They cannot move forward because they can't process their feelings about the abuse that happened to the indigenous cultures who gave us so many of these beautiful practices. But what starts to happen, of course, I can't tell you how much sleep I've lost in this lifetime on this issue and of animal abuse and of child abuse. I'm not cold in any way to this issue. I've made myself sick over this issue. But what I found is that it hasn't helped. And that basically we have to bring honor back into what happened and say, I'm sorry, but this is a new time and we have a new opportunity to treat each other and nature better. So what do we learn from the past? What's happening now is people are being burdened by it and they're dragging it. They're trying to drag it into creating a better present and future, but it's not working because you can't let go of that level of pain to be creative enough to bring a positive outcome into the present and future. So the point is how do we honor and say that was unbelievably awful time of history and it's a terrible time of history now. We honor all who have been impacted, and if they are deceased, we wish you a good journey home while we thank you for how you graced this amazing earth.
Yeah, that just reminds me too of, when one time I was in Italy with Hank Wesselman and we did this spirit canoe where we, I could feel the blood-laden rivers where we were. When I get in a group and I don't spend a lot of time there. I don't know if I'm too self-absorbed or whatever, but I haven't lost a lot of sleepless nights over these things because I just don't live there. And I don't know if that's a gift or, a curse, but I don't. But then there are times like when I went to the Roman baths in Bath and last couple of years ago, I literally threw up. It was like I went into this bath that everyone's supposed to have this great spa, and I turned white as a ghost. And the guy, they're like, "What's the matter?" I'm like, I bolted to the bathroom, and it was like I purged something that had been there in my cellular DNA memory forever in an instant spontaneous thing. So it's not even, sometimes the closure comes without even you having an awareness that you're going to have that closure. Like I had to go there for some reason and I didn't know why. Even the person I was traveling with didn't want to go there. It wasn't a city I particularly liked. And all of a sudden this whole experience happened. And then, we went on to Avebury and it was lovely there. And it was like, but so if you don't do honorable closure, there'll be points that I call them touch-ins where you have to touch in. And for me, that happens a lot of times where I'll run into people and then like a week or two later that they passed or something, or a year or whatever, but it was like they needed this time and space intersection with each other to have some kind of a energetic, honorable closure. Have you ever experienced that?
Absolutely. Just had to run into somebody and something's done. you know?
Right. And it was just like, boom, it's over. And you know, and it's way beyond anything that we can wrap our little brains around. So this comes out into this more cosmic brain. And one of the things that I love about the wind teachings is that if we're all breathing the same wind, because it's been on this planet locked in this bubble for 4 billion years, then we're all breathing the same cosmic hertz. You know, they're all there for us, whether we have a relationship or not to tap into them is you know, our particular destiny. Still, we can always bring this honorable closure when the opportunity writes itself. And that's really important. And I noticed it once. Last year, somebody just died at work one weekend. They were there Friday in their desk, and Monday they weren't there. And it was like really unexpected. And there was this heaviness hanging over the whole place. And I said, well, we need to do a wind whistling ceremony. Sure enough, 75 people, all the people from all of our, you know, we're spread out over 5 different centers. Everyone's there, you know, and after we did the ceremony, everyone could move on.
Mm-hmm.
They cleared off her desk, you know, I mean, it was like an honorable closure that somebody mattered.
Right, exactly. And so, and then honor comes in and closure comes in. There's still the grief that we experience, especially at the death of loved ones or animals or nature beings that we love. But there's a closure that allows a new process to begin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can lead an honorable closure exercise for those of you who would just like to try it and see how it works. And so maybe you have a loved one that died, or your pet died, or you remember a roadkill that you passed by and you wished you knew what to do, or you saw a whole area of trees that got burnt down or that got cut down, or your favorite tree or your favorite rose bush was cut down, or there's a culture that you would like to work with for honorable closure because you're so incensed at their treatment, and many of them are gone now. How do we give them honorable closure? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drum for you. And when you hear the drumming, imagine getting up from where you're sitting right now and walking towards a door that that lets you leave the ordinary realm that we're in right now to enter into the non-ordinary realms, the invisible realms, and go to a particular location, to the trees or the plants or your pet who was living at your house. If you want to work with a pet or a deceased loved one, you might choose a neutral place of seeing yourself going to a garden and meeting with that being, that loved one or that animal, and saying, thank you so much for how you graced my life and this earth. And I wish you a good journey home. And so we've talked about it, so it's easy to do, but now get the feeling. What does it feel like to do that? So either go to an actual location, or if that's not practical, go see yourself going into a beautiful garden where that being will appear for you to give thanks to, honorable closure to, and then just wish it a beautiful journey home filled with love and light. Okay, here we go. This will be short, but it will give you the feeling of the work. Welcome back, everyone. I know it was short, but we do short exercises on the show, and then you have the opportunity to go back and go a little bit deeper into your practice.
Yes, and for me, it usually happens when I'm doing a nightly wind walk or when I'm swimming or when I'm really unexpecting it. All of a sudden, it's like, boom, so whatever the seed we plant, really, and a journey knows no time or space too. So, a few minute drumming could really be, 2 hours in expanded time. It's just so relative.
Yeah, for me, I'm one of those quick journeyers. We get this question all the time in workshops. Some people need 20 minutes to journey, and then there's some of us in 2 minutes. We could make a major motion picture out of what happened in 2 minutes. And it has nothing to do about power or skill or gift. We're all unique beings, and we just all work in their own time. We all work in our own timing.
Absolutely. So trust whatever timing is coming for you. And, and maybe this week would be a really good idea to look and see in your life. And that was kind of what I was doing while Sandra was drumming, was looking, are there any places in my life that I need to offer some honorable closure to at the moment? And as I was looking around, it was pretty clean where I was. And then all of a sudden at the very end, when she's drumming back, I thought of something that happened last night that was brought into my consciousness, brought back into my consciousness on this call, and was like, boom, honorable closure, seal it, time and space, all eternity, boom, we're good. And so it does, like she said, it only takes a half of an instant.
That's right. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for your presence with us. We love doing these shows, and we love that you show up, and we love that you're giving us great feedback on the show, and continue to let us know what topics. We're not ready for guests yet. We've gotten a lot of emails about guests to interview, but we're not there yet. But we are always looking for what topics are you interested in hearing us talk about, or us leading an experiential ceremony or journey to work with. So please let us know what's on your mind. On the wall is always the best place, or you can also email the Shamans Cave too.
Speaking of some honorable closure, I got like this coughing fit. So yes, we'll see you again, and join us again at shamanstv.com. And thank you, Sandra, and everyone who's listening. And please share this episode with your friends, because there's so many people who don't know how to put closure in their life. And all you have to do is, when you see this on Facebook or on YouTube, hit share, send it out. And we thank you.
Blessings, everyone.